which was kind of for a Michelin star. I thought salmon was needed. 23 was
Okay.
I thought it needed some finishing salt. I thought that was, I think they dropped the ball. It was just yes, just for 24. Got one.
Higher expectations.
Yeah. But other than that, I had a wedge salad that was amazing.
Yeah.
The dressing there was wow. Just really fine.
Yeah.
And I had a dessert. That was way over.
Yeah.
It's just the entree was, and that was the only issue I had really. It just needed some salt.
Yeah. Just a little lacking there. Yeah.
Seasoning. I thought for a Michelin star, that should be.
Right on top, yeah.
Mr. Kudo, are you the chair?
No.
Who's the chair, John?
John.
Okay, oh, I was just wondering, cause, Terry wasn't.
Where is he?
He can't make it
he's in-
today.
Huh?
He can't, I think he
Well,
said he
you can
couldn't.
try John. Terry's up in, Superior at that,
Oh yeah, he's gotta drive back down.
so just so you know, so you're aware of what's happening.
Happy belated birthday.
Maybe he didn't want
Oh,
you to
it's
tell
your
him.
birthday.
No, not today. Maybe he didn't want you to tell him because Mike was older. Really?
But yeah, other than that, it was good. Service, but
Yeah.
that was something else.
Yeah.
We ordered a second basket.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
We'll take up knitting.
Yeah, it was,
A lot of times in here,
just,
right?
I mean, they were perfect.
yeah.
With that little dash of sea salt and that one, that's all this thing.
Crocheting is just as good. I crochet. What do you? Yeah.
And then I also told the party guys I know.
But our waiter was amazing. The service was great.
Yeah. We went in.
Hey, Phil,
Yeah.
No.
just wanna know so I can.
Yeah. This lease was like 2022 to 20. Thank you. One of the updates for this year is because of that person.
Looks like. Excuse me?
3 AM.
So it's 4. That's what I got this one. I don't know why, just did.
1 o'clock, we'll call the ad hoc construction committee to order. Approval of, minutes for September 18th, 2024.
I'll move.
Motion by Mr. Moore, is there a second? Second. Second by Mr. Coggins, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Discussion possible motion, review renovations to northeast lot and south location design.
Great, good afternoon, everyone. Last time we met, we were looking at the option in the northeast parking lot, and we were looking at an option across the street. And the direction was, the one that we showed you in the northeast parking lot was missing some key elements, mainly like booking and kitchen, and, direction to us was, can you go back and revisit, redesign of that to try to incorporate some of those, key portions or elements of a jail into the design. So Kyle's got a floor plan here that he'll walk through with you, the changes, of what that looks like in order to accomplish getting that space in there.
Yep, as Kurt had mentioned, this was the option that we had reviewed, last time we met, last month, and just needed some additional revisions. We reduced the number of receiving cells and we'll say, more right-sized this option. So what we have here is roughly the same footprint. Sallyport is still on the north side. We were able to get a pretty small pre-booking area in there with the reduction of the receiving cells. So both options that we'll be looking at today will have 5 receiving cells plus 1 padded chute. That number was arrived at as a meeting from an outcome from the last meeting. We had a meeting with jail and sheriff staff and really came to the understanding that really 5 receiving cells is probably the right size as long as they can still have that padded chute. So we have that in here. There is an ADA receiving cell, staff toilet. The booking area is also in here, plus a little bit of space for property storage. Also, coming off of the Sallyport is a secure vestibule, which then has a corridor off of which is both the kitchen and the laundry, with dry storage in there. It's not a huge dry storage area, so the size of that really will dictate the frequency of deliveries that'll be needed with this.
Sorry, good.
And then also in that main corridor area, we have the medical suite that's there. And off of that, we have the housing pod. One of the other items that we had talked about last time, and you can still see the markup in here, was we took that day room and divided that sort of 4 ways, creating an anteroom off of those cells to be able to have additional classifications. So we have that. So we've got 3 special needs cells and then a medical cell, each of these having their own separate anteroom and then a day room off of that, 2 of which share one of those day rooms. And then we have 3 cell pods off of that. Recreation, multi-purpose is in here. And then when you look at the second floor, we have an additional 6 more pods up on the upper level, along with a mechanical penthouse and the elevator that is there. So when we look at that, that option creates total gross square footage of just under 16,000 on the first floor, just a little bit under 9,500 on the second floor, for a total of 25,000 square feet. And that produces a total of, on the first level, 9 cells. And before I get into this, I just want to say, as we look at both of these options, both options are taking the number of cells and taking the assumption that there would be the maximum amount of what DOC 350 calls double celling, so double bunks in those rooms. So this would be the maximum number right off the bat that you're seeing here. So this option with that would be, there's 9 cells on the first floor, that with that being double celled will be 17 beds. There are 4 special needs cells with that. And then on the second floor, there are 16 cells in there with double celling, taking that to 16 beds. And that brings us to a total of 37 beds, and I'm just looking at this now. And I think with the double selling, that should be 32.
Yeah.
That yes, I just picked that up with that. So, and that number, I'll have to change that up with that. So that would end up being 51 beds.
Why are the 9 cells not 18 beds?
Yes, so we are required when you go to double selling, you have to have at least 1 cell, and Corey can kind of confirm this with me, but the DOC 350 requires if you go to double bunking, you must have at least one cell that is single bunked or 15%. And it's that 15% that we are having to accommodate because the 4 special needs cells does not get us to that number with that. So that brings us to the, yes, that would be 53 beds. And for that, total unique classifications that are in this layout would be 13. And then just reiterating that the total number of receiving cells is 5. I have the plus there, just to indicate that there is the added chute with that. So, and I think, just make a note here. Apologize about that here.
So while he's doing that, the target for this budget was the $25 million option where they've been able to maintain that square footage. So this would be that $25 million option that was discussed. I think the element that we want to look at is the areas that aren't included in this space program. And Kyle kind of went through those with those colored legends that he's got there. So there is no staff entrance or locker space. There is no space for jail admin space, and the receiving storage and the vendor entrance or the visitation, those would end up having to be done in the existing area for staff locker and those sorts of things. So there's going to have to be some elements so that when we compare and contrast the south option, because in the south option we have those included. So just so you know the differences of what you're giving up in regards to the comparisons and the reduction in some of these spaces. So if you don't mind going through the exercise, we did look at how do you potentially connect this to courts, because the way this is laid out right now is that the transport to courts is squad into Sallyport, inmate gets into the squad, we drive around the block, into the existing Sallyport, up the elevator and into courts. So it is going to be staff intensive. So the exercise was what could be done renovation wise, which is not included in this scope, because we want to show you the hurdles that are tied in to be able to accomplish that, of being able to get to court. So Kyle, you can kind of walk me through that.
Sure. Thank you, Kurt. So with that, we've got the existing floor plans for this, I'll say all of these buildings for the government center here for Rusk County, the 2nd floor and the 3rd floor. And just at a real high level, what we've got indicated here are the areas that are in pink or red. Those are what we're considering as just being no-fly zones, areas that really, if any renovation were to happen, you really can't, without a major cost implication, move. They're immovable objects, either because they're an elevator, they're a vertical shaft, it's a stairwell, or they're restrooms that are stacked, or air handling unit rooms that are also stacked. Can they be moved? Yes, they can. It's just, there's a huge cost associated with that. So this is really like the base level of really the parameters with which we need to work within. And then one other item that's indicated on here, and this is the 2nd floor, are these yellow rectangles that are here. Those yellow rectangles indicate the passageway from that center space to both the north addition and the south addition. At some point, those connection points have to be preserved at some manner of some way. So keep that in mind as we begin then to move up to the 3rd floor. And here on the 3rd floor, again, we have the red areas, which are the areas that we are trying to both, and this also includes building columns, just really don't really care to move. So there are areas, the obstacles that we have to plan around. And then we have the size of the courtroom. We have the jury deliberation rooms here, both the bathrooms, the jury deliberation room, and the waiting area, or it's more of like a vestibule for the jury deliberation room. That's in gray. Then the judges' chambers, which are in orange. So one of the major issues that we have with this is if we are making any kind of connection that's coming from, we'll say, as you're looking at it, page right, or from the east side, And the unfortunate part of that is having to come through from the judge's side if we're up at the third level. So then what we would have to do is go through some exercise of shifting those spaces, relocating them somewhere else, being able to have some form of, just make a small room here for court holding. We'll put that in blue. And so there would be a court holding space, and we essentially would need to take that entire courtroom and flip it a little bit and move the judges' chambers to the other side of the corridor. So that would be really the one piece. Yet, with that, we also still need to preserve some level of connection to the existing elevator that's coming up from the jail for any juveniles, because they cannot come up through the same process, the same manner that the inmates will be coming from the jail.
Not only juvenile, somebody that's on chapter 51 with a court.
Correct.
Somebody from who's outside the jail that needs to get to court. That is a key connection to that courtroom, so.
So with that, one of the challenges, if we just say, okay, what if we just turn the courtroom around? Could we maybe just take up the entire third floor? What if that's just open for consideration, and we can reconfigure the corridors in any way? And even with that, you can see how the courtroom already gets a little pinched with the size of, or the locations of the restrooms, the stairways. It gets a little bit tight this way, and we still need to have access to that stairwell on the east side of that building. So really, any option of reconfiguration on the third floor for the courtroom really keeps that courtroom in that same east-west axis. And then it's just shifting the pieces that are on the east side, flipping them over to the west side, and then having that court holding piece that is, that we would have to create over on the east side with that. So that's just one example. But then if our jail is really 2 stories, what if we made the connection at the 2nd floor? So we can take a look at that, and what if we can just say,
Well, to go with the second floor, what Kyle was stating, we would have to have an elevator out there to get up to that level, to get into that connection. So that would be another element on the third floor option.
correct. Yes, correct. So to Kurt's point, if we go back here, at some point where the jail proper is connecting or abutting, it's not really connected up to it, it's held off a bit, but where that connection would be, we would have to have make some kind of concession in here, if I quickly do this, or some type of court delivery level of elevator to get up to that third floor. That piece is not included as part of this plan. So if we wanted to make that connection at the third floor, another elevator would have to be added to this current plan. If that,
Because the red area is only 2 stories.
that would only get you to the 2nd floor of the existing building. So if we look at this then and say, okay, what if we try to make that connection through the 2nd floor? Then if we want to make that connection to the 2nd floor, our way up to the 3rd floor would be that existing elevator that is currently in this portion of the building, and it's by the booking area of the existing jail. So we can utilize that, and that path is functional, but now we have to have a secure corridor that goes from the east side of the building all the way to the west side of the building without any type of interruption in there. And that is where we end up having, and that would be what that blue rectangle is indicating, would be a secure corridor where you bring an inmate from the jail on the east side of the property through the middle building and over to the what would be now the jail holding area, which is currently the booking area. The issue with this is that now, no matter where you take that path, it is cutting off some form of connection to that south addition. And that then there are ways you can get around that. They're operationally not very good. It would be a secure vestibule through that space. It poses a high number of security risks with that. It has to have an interlock system. The cost goes up considerably when you begin adding that level of coordinated hardware. Can it be done? Yes, it can be done. It can be done at a significant cost with that. So if you move that corridor maybe to the middle, you have that ability to preserve that north connection to the north addition and the south addition, but now you've completely split all of the offices through the center of the second floor. So the connection point through the existing building becomes a really complicated piece, which when we say complicated means it'll come at a pretty significant cost.
So we went through this exercise, at least to show you in moving the spaces around, to show you that the $25 million option does address the 50 beds we talked about. They were able to get pre-book in there. They were able to have a kitchen and laundry in there. There are elements that are missing out of that program off to the right. And if we do decide to connect to courts, there would be additional cost, and there are options that could be done. We would just need to figure out what that option looks like, because that would be an additional cost on top of that $25 million piece that's in that corner there. So with that said, let's go into the south option, because now we're gonna look at, we took the model that they started with initially, and we were going to dial back as much as possible to the threshold of what's tolerable to minimize that other design, and that was taking it down to 50 beds, and then Kyle and their team at Venture kind of laid out this entire jail support and intake portion of the jail, found space savings. So why don't you go through with them the new layout that you guys have arrived at?
Sure. So with this, what you're seeing here, we'll start kind of backwards to how we started with the previous plan, and that is the brown or the orange jail pod that you're seeing here is really the basis of what we've had for prior presentations. It's been tweaked somewhat relative for trying to get to that bed count to be at 52. We looked at also and this is a prior iteration where we had looked at taking off part of the east side of that pod for future expansion. That could be added on at a later date if need be. Again, trying to right size the capacity of the jail. So as you are seeing this layout currently shown here, with the revisions that came out of the outcomes of the last meeting, this is showing the first floor having 7 single cells, or 7 cells with double celling, takes that to 14 beds. We have 10 special needs cells, and that includes medical cells for an additional 10 beds. Then when you go up to the second floor, there are 14 cells, and if those are double celled, we're at 28, and then there are 2 additional special needs cells. So then to go to your question on that other option, hey, why don't those numbers add up? We're actually hitting that 15% due to the number of special needs cells that we have in here. So with those number of special needs cells, then that brings up the number of unique classifications to a total of 17 with that. So all of that, as it's shown here currently, this is at 52 beds, but has 17 classifications for that. So all of those classifications are able to be handled in each of these pods with an individual day room, and then these special needs cells, they have a shared day room, but that could potentially have a separate classification in there by use of that ante-room that is there. And then on the lower level, we have 10 of these special needs cells throughout here as well. 2 sets of 2 actually having a shared ante-room. So 52 beds, and then from an operational standpoint, again, this is just reworking the plan that we had originally, and getting that in terms of getting additional feedback from the last meeting and from the sheriff's office and jail staff, really right-sizing what this layout is. For booking, it's again 5 receiving cells, one of them being an ADA receiving cell. We have the padded chute. The Sally port is in here. Sally port, both plans, Sally port is sized appropriately for a bus to be able to be parked in there if the entire jail needed to be evacuated. There is the pre-book area that goes into booking. What is unique to this plan, which is different from the prior plan, is that this has a secure vendor entry vestibule and a release changing area. So the secure vendor entry vestibule, wow, I didn't think that would be that difficult to say, but it is. A vendor would be able to come in, a vendor being anybody who might be working in the kitchen or laundry that is not part of the jail staff, would be able to come in, check with the sergeant's office, be able to put any of their personal goods in a locker, and then go through a secure vestibule, which is the release changing area, and then be able to go to their respected position that they would need. If ever security would be heightened in a way where vendors would need to be searched in any way, you could bring any vendor in through pre-booking, go through the scanning area, and then be able to get checked there, and then come back through that piece with the release changing and go into their respected area. Release changing, another feature that is typically adjacent to property storage. Any inmate that's getting released would come through, come into this vestibule, pick up their property, which was taken and bagged for them at the time of booking and stored. That would be then presented back to them, and they would be able to change in that vestibule and then leave. We also have the visitor entry area that's here, and talking with staff and going through other tours and understanding operational needs with other offices currently in other jails. A lot of the walk-up visitation pieces are not really used as much anymore, and the decision was that that could be a feature that could be handled in a non-contact attorney inmate visit station here. So public visitation and attorney visitation is happening in the yellow area. Staff would be able to come through either the weather vestibule of the public or the vendor and be able to go to their lockers. So we have the locker area in here as well. Then they would take the elevator up to the second floor, where there is the jail administration staff area. There was the reduction of one office from the original plan that we had, so that has been reduced. And then in the medical area, we also reduced that by an office as well, recognizing that that probably could be handled through the existing nurse's office. Also on the second floor, we have the mechanical penthouse, and then connection to the jail pod from the second floor as well. Also of note here, indicating we are leaving an area here that is identified just as being potential space for shaft for an elevator. The plan as it's shown currently is indicating that any kind of, has the indication here of a connection. It was the former Skywalk connection, but still making considerations for that as part of this plan, only because needing to have the elevator as part of that. But this plan has it operationally set that all inmates that would be transferred to court would happen through the Sally Port and then driven up to the existing building.
So in this option, we have reduced square footage, but if you scroll down to those colored areas, you can see that he's included all of those spaces that were missing on the one up on the northeast corner. The only one that is consistent that isn't included on both of them is Huber. So this model has been reduced in square footage. It's eliminated the skywalk. And this option, as it sits right now in its reduced form, would be about 33 to 33.5 million dollars. So you still don't have the connection to courts. Like Kyle said, they do have the space in there that in the future you could add it if you decided that you needed to. But that would be a determination. And I think the other thing just to talk about is the future expansion. On this option where that white boxed area that they've got shown there, that's where they had projected that you could get up to a total of 99 beds based on the layouts that have been put in there. In the future, and that could be added at a later date without affecting the function and operation of your jail. So the build could take place outside of that secure perimeter until at the very end when you go to make the connection, then that circulation corridor that's around that officer station would be the area where they would punch holes in there. Now, you guys did tour Green Lake where you saw that there was kind of a hybrid of that expansion where the outside walls were built and then it was more of a shelled space. We are pricing it right now that those outside walls on that expansion are not included. So it would be a full build for the expansion, but it is still available to be able to fit within the property that you currently own. So. Thoughts, questions?
What all exactly again is missing from the first option?
You can go to that.
Compared to that first one, what?
You can see the ones where he's got them zeroed out. There is no admin space. There is no staff entrance or the lockers for the staff. The visitation area where he talked about that attorney-client, the release, and then the receiving storage and the vendor entrance.
And Huber.
That's on both of them, but yeah, go.
And the elimination of Huber, that was something, again, in discussions with jail and sheriff's office staff. It was determined that the Huber program just, it's electronic monitoring now, and the square footage that would be dedicated to that, that can be managed through that, that release area that we had shown on that one option.
That's consistent with what we've seen across the state, so.
The other part that would, that is not included in this, and I'll say the direction was not explicitly given for that, would be expansion for this layout is limited to what is here, unless of course part of the existing building would be torn down. That would be that loading dock area where is it just forestry department is in there?
Maintenance is back there, emergencies, manager and medical examiner.
So then there would have to be some relocation of those departments to another area, but that would be the one opportunity where some additional jail expansion for future expansion could occur to the south on the existing site. Block off what that would be, but that would require demolition and relocation of departments. So.
Questions, comments on those options?
On that south side, just curious why is the elevator, or what you set aside for the elevator on the opposite side of where the selling board is? Wouldn't you want that closer to the selling board if it was possible?
The elevator that he's showing on the north end is only a placeholder. There would not be an elevator in here. That's if in the future you would ever add the skywalk. Then the elevator is really getting them up a level so that you can clear the street.
So the main
That's
elevator
actually
is that
north
one.
of the one.
Yeah.
So either option, then we still need to transport the prisoners from point A to point B from the jail to the
those items that you just mentioned, you know, that's in option 2 and not in option 1, will they fit any place in our existing building, some of those options, so we can get them back? I mean, without,
Yeah, the difficulty, I would say, and Kyle can speak to it probably more than I can, is that, the entrance and the lockers could be something that is done in that location, but what we do with the, visitation will be a difficult thing, right? And where do we bring visitation? And then what do we do with the admin? Typically, you want those admin close to that pod, because if there is a need and support from the administration staff to get to that, that's where it becomes difficult to be able to accomplish those things without, you know, added renovation and proximity to the addition. So, how you guys handle, you know, the receiving and storage and all those elements are, you know, that's kind of a campus thing here, that you've been dealing with, so.
Some of those things go into where the old jail is.
And I think that's the question is, could spaces be used in there? It is, it's now disconnected from the jail operation, right? And kind of the connection of what Kyle was talking about, to get to that is difficult, because we're really putting it on the opposite side of the block than where the existing jail is.
So one thing that really couldn't move over there that is spatially challenged with this site is that the part that Kurt was talking about, the receiving and storage part. So, the south option has, area identified here for a receiving and loading dock. So for any food, any equipment or anything that would be needed for the operation of the jail, that can be brought in at this point and then stored securely in this vestibule or longer term storage in a storage area. That secure vestibule allows for the ability for, if there are inmates that are working as part of the kitchen or laundry, that they would be able to come and with a hand truck, be able to come pick up any items that are here and go through. We just do not have the space for a loading dock along with the operational flow of squads coming in for the sally port. So really the option here is you either have a delivery truck drop off at the street and then they bring it in through the sally port and through the secure vestibule that way, or they pull through the sally port and drop it off in the sally port until that can be brought in. Either way, there's that disconnect that can happen where if that sally port were to be needed at the time of a delivery, there can be a bit of a conflict with that. So that's one item that really could not be shifted over. Now visitation, you can continue to have visitation where it's at currently on the second floor, but there again, anybody who would want to visit with anybody, they would have to again be transported as if they were going to court. So in a squad around the block to come into the sally port to be brought up. There are, release would be another item that would be challenging to be able to get that in with a separate exit, a separate secure exit for someone to come through property storage, to be able to get that in on the existing site as well. And really cannot be occurring in the existing building.
but the new addition would be connected to the old one in several places, or would it not? I mean, access back and forth, or is it completely standalone?
The way they have it drawn right now, it's a standalone building in that northeast corner. So it would end up having its own, structure, and that's really one of the discussion points we had internally about costing that, is that we're gonna have to deal with potential underpinning of foundations and connections that are tied into that, cause you start to have displacement of loads from building to building, so it would be its own building standalone, the way it's drawn right now. The other thing, and I know sometimes people say it's just something that you live with, it is taking out or covering up all of those exterior windows that you're gonna see on that north side of the south portion and the east side of the balance of the campus. So you're gonna look out the window and see a building. That's what it's gonna be, an outside wall is gonna become an inside wall.
I originally thought the two would be connected, but I guess it doesn't work that way.
Well, from a connection standpoint, where that red is, the outside wall of that is a secure perimeter. So you gotta treat it as though that's the wall of the jail. Nobody's coming in and out of that.
Right.
Regardless of where it's placed, that's your secure perimeter. So there wouldn't be a connection point through that. That's all we had for that, John.
Yeah, doesn't it, does it have to be certified by state or something when you go to knock a hole in the wall? Or how does that work?
I guess I don't know what you mean by,
I don't know the question I'm trying to ask, I guess.
The plans would have to be reviewed by the state for building codes as well as the public corrections as their own.
Court system just allows it to.
oh no, if we're gonna do any renovation with the courts, the district court administrator and the chief judge would have to approve all of those drawings if we're gonna do something with that courts. Yeah, if you're talking about that, absolutely, there would need to be review and approval of that, absolutely. Yep.
I guess the real question is either option A or B, or B or A.
Or if there's iterations of it that, you know, you wanna see, if there's something that jumps out to you here that doesn't, make sense. I think, Kyle and the team did a good job of being able to find a layout here that is efficient, even though the Northeast doesn't address everything. You think there's a flow, there's a layout there, that identifies what could be done with its limitations. And what they did on the south side, when I saw it for the first time, I was impressed that they were able to get that layout. It is a very efficient design on that, jail side down there. And I didn't speak to how you guys could decide on this, cause if there is some concern about the number of beds, that white area that's up there, we could give venture direction to say, when you design this building, we want you to design it so that this is all done. Meaning that we would show the cells in there. But when we have the contractors bid it, their base bid is only going to be this. And this portion here becomes an alternate 1, alternate 2, whatever that is. So on bid day, when you bid this out, if this number comes in below your budget, and if there is a concern about is 50 beds enough? Cause I do think there is some concern from the sheriff's side is if 50 beds is enough. Strategy could be, we break this up into an alternate so that the day that the bids come in, we tell you, if I told you this number was $33.5 million and the state comes in at 31, you say, we got some additional dollars in here, could we put 10 more beds in here, what would it cost? We would have a number for that, right? So you could do this entire piece, you could do a spot here, you could do 2 spots. I've done that multiple times where you bid and add alternate, so that on the day of bid day, you can make that decision, so you're not hard pressed to say, we're gonna go with 52 beds and that's where we're at. You could see the hard numbers when bid day comes in. But this flow down here that they came up with, I think is very efficient in regards to jail support and the things that are tied into that. And what they did here on these special needs beds, it's going to be an effective way to manage the population, not only from a classification perspective, but if they have rollover or what they need for their receivers, they can take these individuals into those separate beds, or those separate cells, to be able to manage that population for reclassification. So, I guess the only thing that I would just caution all of you is that if a project is approved, and as we move forward on the timing, we're still talking about, you know, the duration to be able to get it built. It's not like we have to, this isn't all hard and fast of the exact layout. We would get into design, and there may be some tweaks to this floor plan, and you as this committee would obviously approve those changes before we would finalize the bid documents to put them out. But there's going to be some things that come up from mechanical and electrical where they're gonna need a chase added here or there, so you may see some of these things slide a little bit. But at this being kind of that beginning location, that's the nature of how the design phase would happen, so.
What do you guys think?
And the price tag on this one was, what, 30?
If we bid it out today, it's 33.5 million. So your guess is as good as mine of what's gonna happen in the world of inflation and when you guys decide. So if you decide you're gonna do it 2 years from now, we gotta make it that much higher. Depending on what happens between now and when you bid it, that's what that number is going to look like inflation wise. So, you know, if the world changes and prices come down, it could be lower. You know, I don't expect that. But if inflation continues to do what it is, we would have to see what that bid market looks when you put it up to bid.
The other two were 25 and.
We only have two options, so the other one's 25.
This one's 33.
What do you guys view as the cons or the negatives for option one? So northeast part of this campus.
I see several negatives with that. Operationally, it's not as efficient, obviously. The other thing is long-term, what are we looking at when the courthouse needs to be redone? I mean, in my mind, it's not as realistic if you're looking 20, 30 years down the road. That's my opinion.
I agree.
That first option too, you guys talked about, you know, how we'd have to redo the courtroom. Where would we have court for 1 to 2 years? We talked about that too. Would any other offices have to be displaced for a
I think
while?
it's a matter of how and when you would phase it, right? So you could go out a strategy to say, we're gonna build the jail and get it up and running, and then get everybody out of the jail, and then come in and take that second floor and renovate it. So you could utilize that space, but now you're extending the project, right? So to your point, you got a timeline to get to that. So you could take people that are being displaced from whatever floor that is. We were talking second floor could get renovated, then you come back over to that. So it would be a 3-phase process to get to it. So that's where we kind of laid it out, that if you guys do want to head down that path, we would need to work through those details of what does that phasing look like and how do we displace them. So.
Well, option two is, I mean, certainly more efficiently set up. I mean, includes about everything we need, just,
Does that sit in the parking lot from north to south?
Correct.
Is that how it would lay down?
We didn't show it on the site. It was, I'll say sort of intentionally, as it has kind of, we investigated actually it was the rotate and the flip of potentially looking at it going in an east-west direction. So we just kind of kept a sight off of it, it's more of a general plan for consideration.
But the idea would be, would it fit?
It fits
in
over
that
there.
Section?
Yes.
From north to south?
Yes.
Is that running right against the sidewalk?
Yes it does.
Not north to south, east to west it does.
East to west, well, now with the expansion piece off, but the north edge would be and the west edge would be.
we're looking at future expansion, you know, the whole courthouse basically down the road. Option 2 is the way to go there, but yet, option 1 is, we're looking at cost, try to get this thing through, you know. Gotta look at cost too, I guess, but I agree. if
Costs
we're
now
looking
and
at-
costs later.
Well, that's right.
Exactly. Cause I mean, you put that on the northeast corner, inflation or not, the cost to renovate this building in amongst everything else is a tougher, I mean, it can be done. You bring cranes in, you do whatever, you can do that. I mean, but it makes a job a lot bigger.
So, one thing we haven't, addressed relative to future planning, and I just wanted to indicate here on the plan, is let's go through a scenario where, the need for, relocation of the court, maybe a new government center, and we had sort of spaced it out on that block from a master planning standpoint, that sheriff's office, courts, DA, the judicial side of things, basically everything that's on this block could go onto the east side of the block to the south. We've just spaced that out. That is a possibility. So say that were to happen, but the limitation would be still don't have, can make the case for future jail expansion. That connection to the courts can still be there with just the addition of a secure corridor that would go through there, that if that expansion were to happen in the future, you could still build around that secure corridor between the two buildings then, but, by taking, I'll say by cleaving that part of the east side of this building off does not preclude you from being able to connect to something
Right.
to the east in the future. And to Kurt's earlier point, sort of this yellow block relative to the alternates, as you can see, what I wanted to just demonstrate there is these alternate bids that could be put together, with the way that these pods are configured, each of those pods could essentially be an alternate. They're kind of modular in that fashion, and it would allow for, you know, that to be designed, and then if one pod, bids come in low, and you can then look at what would one pod adding that on cost, what if we went with two, those can all
So
go, it's a very modular.
We're working with a couple other counties right now that how they're evaluating those alternates is not so much for their population today, but it's for their population in the future. And if they have a good number that's there, and they can bring in out-of-county housing, whether it be another county or a state inmate, they are looking at revenue. So you've got a borrowing that you've already authorized, right? Let's say that you authorized $33.5 million, it comes in under that, but you are still able to build more. They're using the potential revenue from that side to offset their debt, right? Or to offset operations. So if you guys are dealing with budget constraints that are tied into that, and you can bring a revenue stream that's in there, I never advocate or recommend for building for revenue. But if you build, if you have an approval and you have a good bid number, and you can look at those beds, and let's say you got 10 beds, and they can bring you a couple $100,000 of revenue, and it helps you offset or pay off the borrowing, or to help increase revenue for your operating costs, counties are evaluating that. So those are things to consider, that you don't have to make the hard and fast decision today. What Venture's going to do to design it would be the same services, it's just a matter of how do we break it up on bid day to be able to do that. So, just something to consider.
So is the consensus that we should look at this option?
So what more information would you get to make it a little later?
Well, excuse me, to begin with, you guys have presented us with, some good options to consider for this. However, I am not a person that would ever go with a one pony show. We've never given anybody else a chance to take a look at this and give us a bid. I think we need to do that.
But we directed them at the last meeting, exactly what they did though. This bid started at, correct me if I'm wrong, 38.5 million?
Well, we were north of 40 at one point, but
Okay.
yeah.
So, we're down to 33.5 million. I would like to see 30 myself, but reality's reality in some cases. I don't know how much longer we should keep kicking this around. If we keep waiting year after year after year, if we keep coming to the same table, keep discussing the same things, the price is gonna keep improving. So if we don't get locked into something soon, we can, and no jail period.
I guess I agree, I think we have enough information here to make a decision one way or the other. Just that, I'm not totally convinced option B is the best option, I mean,
We're gonna displace a business then with B. Is that correct?
That's what we were really talking about,
Well, don't you think we should?
are we at that point yet?
It's a consideration, is it not?
These are just preliminary discussions and plans yet, right, Kurt?
Correct.
Well, it sounds to me like you guys are wanting to make a decision here today.
No, I ain't saying we're gonna make a decision, I'm not gonna make a decision without the board. My recommendation is to shove it to the board,
We can do that.
I'm not gonna make the decision alone. There's
Can we make
15 other people.
the decision that we decide on these two options, do we not take that to the full board
Correct.
for the final decision?
Correct. I don't think it should be all on our shoulders to make the
I
decision.
agree 100%.
So. Ready to go to another board meeting?
Sure. Got coffee ready?
Oh, we'll have coffee and cakes and donuts, whatever you want.
But which option do we take to the full board?
We're just gonna take one? Or are we gonna?
Well, that's my opinion of that one.
So one.
You wanna take both, that's up to you guys.
I don't know.
If we
There's a
take both,
significant-
it'll explain things obviously better to everyone as to why, what the difference is between that option and this option.
Right.
So if you wanna take both, that's up to you guys, I don't know.
But at the same time, that's what we're here for, to take one option to the full board and go with it.
And that's why I said if it was my opinion, my option is that one. What are you calling A and B? Is this B?
I would say that would be if it's the program.
Option A, what was the cost?
25 million.
So back to my question, that option B does displace a business. Correct.
It would have some in the future, yeah. But that's part of life.
About a month ago, both of the houses on the north side of that block were for sale at don't know if they both are still.
For sure, it's.
I know Newsburgers is still is, I don't know if that corner one is anymore.
What are you thinking, Mike? What are you thinking?
Well, that, it would have allowed us to flip this and run it east and west, and we would not have displaced the business.
That business is in a county-owned building right now, right?
It is. It is.
Are there any empty currently county-owned buildings?
There's gotta be. Yeah, but I don't know,
Right in town from.
I'm not aware of any that work very well for retail. You know,
Well, and that's a discussion that the board could have in closed session, what kind of support you wanna offer that building owner.
Even if this comes in at like 33.5 million, that doesn't leave much to play with on the table for somebody looking at highway.
Kurt, can you remind us what those numbers were?
Well, it depends on, so what level, if you wanna add the wash bay or not. I mean, it's anywhere from $6 to $7.5 million, so.
See, that puts us over already.
Is this over what?
My budget in my head.
Where we were at the beginning, you mean?
I think the evaluation on how you, if you wanna look at packaging them together, I think it would be worth the effort of having Baird look at what that tax impact would be again, because you went through an entire year in regards to what your equalized value would be. Because now we want another season to get to that, and I've seen that that's been helpful for counties. I don't know what your situation would look like, but I think it would be worth exploring, and it'd be something that you could look at both of those options. Obviously, you're not making a decision today on that, but that may be something that is beneficial to review.
And also those were, those were Kurt's numbers that he put together. If you put an RFP out for the highway shop and we get, a different architect or construction manager in, they might have a different number for you.
Well, I think we need to get that number, cause I still think, like I said last month, we need to combine these two. So we're doing, satisfying the sheriff's department with the jail and so on that we need, and also satisfying the highway shop, because that's a need too. So,
I'd like to see both combined too.
Yep.
If we're gonna go into debt, so to speak, we need to get the money for the buck.
Right.
Longevity of it.
right, cause if we do one without the other, we can't wait 8 to 10 years to do the other one, I mean,
Right.
completely. We have to do something now, I think.
I think so too. What is that detail there, Ashley, what do we?
If the committee so felt moved to, someone could make a motion to forward to the county board this jail part, and also on your other agenda item, under highway, you could forward to the county board a recommendation that an RFP is issued for a highway, storage garage.
Right. Does everybody think of that idea?
I like that idea, but I think I would rather see that $6 to $7 million tacked on to that 25 million and not the 33.5 myself. It's my opinion.
I was thinking it, but you said it.
I mean, it is only difference of $8 million, I mean. Again, for a future expansion, to the south, it's option B makes more sense.
If
Look
we
at a
can,
20-year plan or 30-year plan, it makes way more sense than trying to tie up that corner.
right, I agree.
Tear all that down or revamp all that, and then we'd have all that money and millions stuck into that plan. So, I understand what you're saying, but overall, it makes more sense for longevity. A 30-year plan in my head.
I don't disagree, for long term, you know,
But the price tag is the issue.
we're over 40 million then. Or right around that.
Between the two.
But we're getting both for our buck. I
Right,
mean,
and you gotta look at the fact we're
Yep.
building two phases.
Yep.
For the price versus one, which was just the jail last
Yeah.
time around.
right, and that's what I'm hoping will sell this, is that we're killing two birds here. I think if, you know, word got out that we're doing more than just the jail, I mean, general population around, I mean, a lot of people are gonna accept it a little bit easier, I think.
And if we go with that phase, like the plans that you had with that phase one plan
Oh, out there, yeah.
around at the
Yep.
highway, that would, what was it, cover 18 trucks?
Yeah, I think it covered everything that was in your fleet outside of the pickups. Yeah.
Which is huge.
It is, it's gonna be a big building.
And again, we're buying new, snowplow trucks. And they're sitting at a crack of $370 a piece, and we're storing them in $1.95 bills. And or we're just setting them outside on the ground as well.
I think the bigger piece of how inefficient your operation is because of the building right now.
Yeah, a lot of excess labor with plow trucks and.
And they're just throwing money away by unhooking everything outside and leaving it on the ground.
I agree.
So, I think if we can figure out how to incorporate what you're saying, John, and send it down to the board, see what their current thought is.
So it'd be this one, we're still transporting prisoners to court,
Correct.
which is, so how often is that? I mean, is it every day, there's 5, is there 1, is it
There could be,
some weeks nothing?
there could be a day with none, there could be a day with 8. It's different every single day. I would venture to guess, out of 5 days a week, on average, at least 3.
We had 2 today.
Like at least 3 or 4 days a week, we're taking inmates to court.
We try to do as much as we can by video, but it's their right to be in person.
So on an average, how many a week, Phil?
How many a week? How many inmates?
Or a day, I'm sorry, day.
Oh, it's not, we can't say it's every Monday through Friday, cause it's not.
It varies.
But this week it could be 17 inmates, 5 days a week. Next week it could be 3 days a week and 8 inmates. Different every single week, every single day.
Depends.
Yeah.
It depends on your jail population, and it depends on what charges they're on. And it depends on how hard their attorney wants to work. We have some defendants and inmates where their attorney will write 6, 7, 8, 9 different motions for one case. We have other attorneys that will write one.
So either plan though, we go with, they're still gonna be.
Maybe we transport.
Yeah. And we will have to hire extra staff for that transport.
As we were just talking today, just in my mind yesterday, I thought about that exact issue. And it was yesterday, I was in a meeting, an investigator was in Eau Claire County doing interviews, other investigator was in HHS doing interviews, and all of our patrol deputies were on calls. So if there was court at that time, there was no one here to transport that inmate to court. And you have an attorney waiting, we all know attorneys work for a minimal amount, but family waiting to do that court, so that inmate wouldn't went to court.
But if an inmate had court in, under your cert, under what you got right now, how would they have gotten there?
Just that,
Don't they know their court date out ahead of time?
sometimes.
Usually.
Okay, so 99% of the time they know their court date out ahead of time, so people will be around, I'm assuming, for that.
But you can't take a jail staff person off the floor and have them be gone for 30 minutes to 3 hours, depending on how long the hearing is.
I'm not sure how we're gonna get around that right now.
So we're talking one more person, two more, I mean,
Well, you,
just for day shift, no doubt, because the court's only
Correct.
during the day.
and not looking at it real deeply, I mean, we've obviously discussed it, you're probably going to have 2 more full-time employees. Obviously, if you have court transport people, they're gonna get vacation, they're gonna be sick, they're gonna, whatever, so you can't not have one. We're also gonna be real hard pressed to hire somebody that's just a court transport person, because then you're gonna offer them a part-time job with no bennies. You're gonna be able to staff it, you're gonna have to have full-time people, or you're not gonna be able to apply for it. Cause if we're just doing it for court transports, we would tell them, alright, this week you're only working 10 hours, next week you're working 27 hours, next week you're working 13. You'll never get anyone to apply for that position.
Good job for some retired guy, you know?
Are you saying you would apply?
You have a job?
I didn't say that, but. Well,
That'd be tough, logistically, that would be tough to figure out.
Well, okay, so it's not like that's, it's gonna be disruptive eventually.
down the road,
And first at hand, though, we gotta get this figured out if we're even gonna put everything up, or we want this to go.
Yes.
Census to send this to the highway. We sent out an RFP.
I'm sorry, I
How did
didn't,
you say that?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
How did you say that? The recommendation,
To recommend to the county board consideration of issuing an RFP for, design services for the highway facility.
So a lot better than I did. Along with the A or B option for the jail, correct? Or is that
Yep, it-
separate?
Yep, you
You
can
wanna
make them
send them
two,
both, or
you
you
can
wanna
make
send
two
them both?
separate motions.
Two separate.
well,
you said earlier, that's why we're here, to make that decision.
right,
Either on option A or B. I like the option B, but I don't like the price. I like option A, with the price, but I don't like the way it's set up.
yeah. Balance it, there's pros and cons, I mean, there's always gonna be, I guess. Well, no doubt B makes the most sense, I mean, if we're looking 5 years down the road or 20 years down the road, I mean,
These are
even though the price tag is higher, it makes more sense, I guess.
keeps the options open to add on.
True. More easily, yeah.
That's, do that over here, we got no option to add on. And our bid, the bid.
There is an option to add on.
On the one over here. Not up to, this one here is what, 39 cents, what was the other one?
Where do you remember? 80,
87 sticks in my head for some reason.
87, 6 and I, and doing the math on this, I believe I was at, 40.
Could add on to the
40,
south on that one,
45.
correct?
Yeah, but you also have the demolition and
Right.
locating all of those.
Right.
That 53 is actually, would be 45 when we take the 15%.
functional capacity.
Yeah.
I just don't know if that's the way that, nice way to go though, you're limiting yourself already right out the gate. Versus you build over there, you got more than enough room to keep going. Up the whole clock if you need it. Eventually. Need to catch up to speed, Terry?
Yeah.
This option is 25
25
million
million, and where is it?
on the
Northeast corner.
northeast
On
corner.
this site.
There's a block.
We took that plan that we talked about last time
Yeah,
and potentially adding more classifications to it.
so how many beds is it?
It is, 45.
Was 52, but with 85% capacity, it was 45.
Or we
For
can,
the double bed.
or option B, when we get to it. Is across the road.
And taking additional
Right,
Part-
that's from last time.
from the east side off, disregard this, we'll just move this over here. Let's see it. And then reconfigure the jail support spaces based off of feedback from the last meeting and additional follow-up meetings with, sheriff's office and jail staff. So each options have 5 receiving cells, kitchen, laundry, medical suite. That is all that they, both options have that. This option, and pre-booking. This option includes, staff lockers, visitation, jail release, vendor entry, and administrative offices. The other option, just there, the room is not there to fit, well, we could go 2 stories, but that would get over the 25,000, which was the direction to have a $25,000 option.
How many beds is it B?
25 million.
5,000, did I hear you right?
25,000 square feet.
Oh, I thought you were talking about dollars.
Square feet.
Two for that.
So how many beds are in this one?
In this option as shown, that would be, it with double bunking, that would be 52 beds. And then if you added the additional expansion, that would get it to 99.
Okay, and how many classifications?
Classifications on this one is 17, and the east option would be 13.
The price
33 and a half.
for this one?
And this is part of the revision 11, 12, whatever, of sort of that version that was somewhere north of 40,000 square feet. This reflects it as 37,982 square feet.
You all caught up now?
Mm-hmm.
But we're looking to send it to the full board now too, which option would you recommend?
Which you guys have all decided now.
Nope, we
Shot
haven't
down.
said a word, we haven't said nothing.
I would say the one across the street, if this is option B,
You'd be,
that's the one. Because there's room for expansion, it's got more classifications, and it's got some more beds, and you don't wanna keep having to go back to the drawing board every time. And so there's room for expansion, and I think it our needs better. Price may be higher, but like I mentioned before.
You gotta look, this started way north of 40 million, we're down to 33 and a half. I'm not trying to say I'm happy about it, but less than what it was. Yeah, I'd like to see it at 30 million, but.
No, I think, I would recommend this one.
The other item that we had mentioned as well is if, because of that future expansion space on the east side, and the master planning for the entire block, of course, and that, you would not need to have the jail expansion happen in order to connect to courts if they were to go
Right.
there. You could have a secure corridor, that would just essentially just come off of the east of that, and you could build a jail in the future.
And you could put in 2 skyways this time then too.
We'll keep that on the ground floor.
You guys have done a great job cutting it down like we requested last meeting. Is there any room to cut it just a little more to hit that 30 million like John had suggested? Is there any place?
The last time we talked about a pain threshold, and I think you're right there. I think you would be compromising the operations of the jail. They've reduced the booking down to what I think is reasonable. The pre-book is small. The only area that I think we could potentially critique, and I'm not saying we're gonna find gobs of space or money, but the kitchen could have an evaluation of what we do with the kitchen. Outside of that, I don't think there is space in there that we could remove. And again, to find $3 million, we'd be hard pressed to do that. So, the other thing that we have going against this is just, you guys know the economy. I mean, if we were doing this 3 years ago, you'd be doing this well under 30 million bucks. And you'd be doing a dance and a jig cause you did it. What's happening in the world of cost doesn't help the case, but it's not coming back. And the longer that we wait, the more it's gonna go up. You're gonna get less building for more money. It's just the way things are.
So to Kurt's point, with the kitchen and laundry, the layout that is shown in option B is actually based on an equipment layout that we had from a consultant that we typically use for these type of projects. And so it is, and it would be for we'll say a smaller size jail, more fitting of roughly 50 to 100 beds. So it has the capacity to grow to 100, but it is sized for 50. It will be really tight to squeeze space out of there, and really the main part of that is if you just think of any kind of, not a residential kitchen, but even like a commercial restaurant kitchen, that layout is limited to about 5 feet between like a range and a work table. So it's getting, that's where you're cutting space out, is in that.
Cut it another 5 feet.
It gets extremely difficult operationally to manage a kitchen.
You try to get it
Start
at 3,
pinching that.
I'm at the 333 even.
So with that, to Kurt's point, will we be able to get that down, you know, when we're looking at the kitchen, and the kitchen being 1,500 square feet, it really is going to be pretty marginal in that 37,000 square foot. We're trimming nails at this point, is what it is.
Good back here.
So this kitchen, the way it is now, can serve this, plus if they go up to 100
Yep.
beds, it accommodates that. You don't want it too small, and then you're gonna defeat the whole purpose of having a kitchen. You're gonna be bidding out all your meals.
Start a restaurant. Okay. Well, once we name this out, Kurt, this still could probably come one way or the other.
Oh, yeah.
Follow me if you come in.
You need me to stay?
Well, I-
Well, some kind of contract, I'm sure it'll get to that point.
I'll give you the SD card out of this one.
Yeah.
just need a consensus amongst us to take to the full board, correct?
Recommend motion. Recommend it to send to the, county board.
I guess I would make that motion to, take that, option B to the full board with the highway department facility included in that. As a separate project, but same time frame. So they're both gonna be completed or planned and, you know, for next year, whatever, whenever it passes and
You don't wanna repeat all that, do you?
as long as you get it. Yeah. What we talked about, I mean, you know, include the highway department with the jail.
So it'd be an RFP for the highway department storage facility, is that what you're looking for?
That's how it would be laid out.
I would do an RFP for design services.
Design services?
Design.
We wanna do them separately.
Yeah, we should probably do the,
I think so.
okay, so,
Just cleans it up.
So, Mr. Moore, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yep.
But so your recommendation is that we forward to the county board for consideration option B with the recommendation from this committee that when we move forward with the jail project, you would like something at the highway shop to be a part of that bonding.
Correct.
Okay, so that can be one motion.
exactly how she said that.
Very well put.
Do you follow that consensus of what Miss Ashley said for your motion?
I do.
Okay, is there a second?
One second.
Second by Mr. Wedwick. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Same sign. Motion carries. Send to the county board.
Do we have the motion read to us?
When she gets done.
Did you hear what I said?
This be November's board meeting?
Oh, gosh. We're gonna have to push it to November.
It's
I
just-
have not looked at the October one, to be honest with you, yet, Kurt.
The reason I don't think I could make your October one, but I could make your November one. So, is your November one on the 18th?
No, it's on the
No,
12th,
on the
during
12th.
Monday.
Then I won't be able to make it.
What is the other one you don't have the one toward the end of the month, right?
No, the November meeting is always in the middle of the
November
month.
is on the
Yeah, it would be the 12th, possibly 13th, and possibly 14th as well.
Stop it. It's ending at 12.
When's your October one?
Next Tuesday.
Next
I
Tuesday.
could make next Tuesday.
So it's not the 19th?
No, it's the 12th. Our next board
I
meeting
haven't
is
seen the
Tuesday.
agenda to see what's on.
That healthcare co-op wants to present to the board,
Okay, how heavy is it?
couple finance resolutions, couple personnel resolutions.
What's that, county board?
Yeah.
No, look at that. It's pretty big.
I'm only staying 45 minutes.
You want me to read this back?
What's that?
You want me to read this back? Okay, motion by Moore, second by Woodbury to recommend option B, south location for 33.5 million with an RFP for design services for the highway department storage facility. And forward to county board for bonding approval.
She didn't hear that.
We're gonna have to repeat that.
I can't. Okay. The recommendation would be option B, south location for 33.5 million with a RFP for design service for a highway department storage facility and forward to county board for bonding approval.
No, okay, so I think pull the RFP out completely, because that's a separate agenda item.
Okay,
Okay, and then,
so you don't want design services in there either?
No, like, I would control
that
X
out.
that and put it to the, save that for the next motion, that's good.
Alright, got it.
So it should be the forward recommendation of option B. And consideration of highway, what do you wanna call it, facility, garage, something, consideration of highway facility.
Storage facility.
Storage facility. At the same time, or within the same
In the
borrowing.
same time frame.
Yeah, so the idea is that we are forwarding recommendation to do the jail, along with we want to do something with highway at the same time,
It's part of the same.
as part of the same
Sorry.
borrowing.
And I think at the point that you're gonna take it to the board, I don't think that the board at that point, correct me if I'm wrong, is looking to do any authorization of borrowing. It's going to be a recommendation for us to proceed with that RFP for the services, and that there is a discussion, an agenda item about the support of this project from that group, combining them together. And then what I would do would be a presentation to show the progress that we've done, both of these options. I think we show both options and say, here's how we got to here, this is what the committee took action on, a recommendation to do this, but they wanna combine it with the highway piece, and I would bring in the concept that we showed them about doing the storage facility portion first, but that you could master plan for them in the future, when in 8 to 10 years you can address all of that. That's what I think should go before the board, and I can present that if you would like. I could do it next Tuesday, I can't do it in November.
Okay,
Or-
that's, John, that is completely your call.
What kind of timeframe you think, Kurt?
I think I can get it done in half an hour of my presentation, and then whatever discussion is after that.
Alright. Yes,
We'll show them both options though,
It still
and
gives you 15 minutes.
what?
It still gives you 15 minutes.
Until you leave.
Really.
Keep Bill. Alright, so you have that now, Connie?
Option B, south location for 33.5 million with the consideration for a highway department storage facility at Fort Worth County Board for the same bond issue. That's what she said.
Everybody good with that? Then I guess we're done with everything here. We just covered 16, 5 to 6.
7 o'clock next Tuesday?
Any announcements?
I'm sorry, did you want the motion to forward the RFP as a separate?
Right. That's the other thing you have to do.
What?
Recommend to the county board to issue the RFP.
We need a motion to send that. Well, I guess we need a motion to, for the county board to issue an RFP.
RFP
For designs, for that same language Connie had earlier, yeah.
for the design.
Design services for the highway
For the highway.
storage facility.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Coggins. Second. I'll second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Alright, any announcements?
I don't know where it was, but did you approve the minutes?
Long time ago.
Right up
Right at the
front.
beginning of the meeting.
Okay, I missed it.
No announcements, that next meeting date.
We wanna do something, I'm gone that week of the 11th, but
Shouldn't we wait and see what the board
Okay,
does?
do that.
I don't, I guess, keep setting these meetings and
Sure.
we're coming back and just kinda talking circles.
We can just set a meeting after the board meeting, whatever happens. Sure.
Yeah, if you're good with that, are you guys good with that?
Works for me.
Another ad hoc meeting.
Yeah, wait, so see what the board does. Alright, motion to adjourn.
Thanks, everyone.
Yep. So moved.
Make the motion to adjourn.
we're supposed to get together in 2 weeks. So, yeah, I think I got like 35 up there. Yeah, I heard that, some cranes out there, and we need a